Welcome back to the Neutral Zone. Today we're going to be going over the 2025 Clemson Tigers as we continue along to our 2025 College Ball Preview Series. Before we get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe to join the nation. We're going to continue to push out these previews, continue to talk college football on a daily basis. We love to have new faces, new inputs, new opinions, and perspectives as we talk about the best sport on earth. With all that being said, let's get right into the video.
At the end of the day, you may say this is a disappointing season for Clemson, but I think there's some positive momentum really at the end of the season. Obviously, the SMU win in the ACC championship. And although that Texas loss was a 14-point loss, I think we saw some things that really kind of have to make you feel good as a Clemson fan. Stephen, I know obviously you're a big Clemson fan about going into this next year. Cade Klubnik really looked like a sensational star quarterback in that Texas game. And really, as we watch the season progress, and then when you think about what they're bringing back, all 3 wide receivers, a bunch of players on the offensive line, that defensive line is going to be nasty with Parker and Woods coming back. We've seen Sammy Brown continue to progress, a very young secondary. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic if you're a Clemson fan going into this year. I think when you look at it in totality, again, ACC champion, a playoff team, and I think they bring back the most experience from last year. Yes, they are losing some players, and we'll talk about those. But I think you have to be really excited about what they bring back. What's your thoughts, Stephen?
I agree. When you look at their schedule, obviously as a Clemson fan, I watch every minute of every game, so I look at it differently than you. Just same way you look at Ohio State differently than I look at Ohio State. But last year for me, it wasn't I would say last year was one of the few years in the last 15 seasons or so that I didn't expect to make a deep run. Last year, I felt like it was a rebuild window. Cade Klubnik, obviously still young. I didn't have a lot of trust in Cade. I'm going to be honest there. Also, the wide receiver room was very questionable. I think Phil Maffa was banged up for the most part. We had a very young team. We had transfer portal exits the year prior. So, it was really a question mark of how good can the team be under a somewhat inexperienced quarterback after, the DJU saga and now having Cade. But I think he answered a lot of my questions as a Clemson fan. He proved me wrong personally. But at the end of the day, there were still some games on this schedule that we had last year that I didn't really didn't sit well with me. Obviously, the Louisville loss I felt like was very, very bad at home. You get 30 balled by Georgia. Obviously, it was a 6-3 game at half, but you get completely outplayed in the second half. I know it was a quote unquote neutral site game, but the game was in Atlanta. It wasn't a neutral site game. But I think you kind of picked up head of steam late in the year. The Texas game for me, obviously, was a playoff game, but I just felt like we kind of had our hands tied in that game. Maffa didn't play anything after the first drive. We had a wide receiver at running back, a lot of injuries in the offensive line throughout that entire, I guess, postseason run. When I say SMU and the Texas game, so I kind of knew we were up against a monster against a team like Texas, but we were able to at least make it somewhat of a game. I think it was 31-24 late, and then they scored to make it a 2-possession game. But just to kind of get into the roster makeup, when we make these slides and stuff, typically this was easy to make because I know the roster by the back of my hand. But when I was making the key losses, I couldn't find any more of the key losses, and that was kind of, I didn't want to seem biased, but when I really look at the roster, there's not many key losses. Jake Brenningstool was a key loss. He's not on here, so that's one person I did miss. But outside of those 4 players, we bring everything back. There's a few offensive linemen that are in the NFL now, but they weren't drafted. Their offensive line was so much in flux last year with rotation that I don't think it's going to be a massive issue. And I think, like you said before, I think we return either second or third most production in college football. We hit the transfer portal. I don't know how much of an impact it's going to be, but we did hit the transfer portal a bit to fill a little bit of the gaps that we have, the small gaps that we do have. But I guess I'm going to ask you a question. I know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask you a question because obviously looking at the team, it's kind of hard to point out, a flaw. But what is, if you, as an outside person looking in, if you had to say, I think Clemson can only go as far as what would it be?
So, I think it still comes down to the rise of Cade Klubnik, but I think you're going to see that. So my concern would be how that running game looks. Obviously, as you mentioned, Phil Maffa off to the NFL. As you see over there, Gideon Davison. I think he's the projected starter. There is Keith Adams as well. Do one of those guys present a threat? Right, we can talk all day about the three wide receivers, Moore, Wesco, and Williams. But if you don't have a running game, and I can put 6, 7, 8 defensive backs on defense because I don't have to be concerned about the running game. I think that makes the team one dimensional. I don't think that's Clemson football. I don't think that's what Dabo wants to play. Not to say that they're not going to air it out, but I think they have to have a threat on the ground. So if it is Gideon Davison or if it is Keith Adams, and you probably know more about how that race is looking than me, but you have to be able to replace the productivity that Phil Maffa gave you last year. I think everything else, Barrett Carter, amazing linebacker, but I think there's guys. Sammy Brown, I think, takes a bigger role this year. I think there's guys, Jeremiah Alexander, as you have noted up there. I think there's people ready to step in that are somewhat proven. And I would say I think Sammy Brown is actually very proven. The running back position for Clemson is the one position where I don't think they have a truly proven player who has college football experience.
Yeah, last season, Phil Maffa shared the workload with Jay Haynes, and Jay Haynes tore his ACL in the AC title
Yeah.
game. I think if he hadn't have torn the ACL, I think he would be the projected starter. He's a very good running back. I don't know how his timeline is looking right now, with how the medical system is now and technology. I'm sure he's going to play next year, but he tore his ACL in December, so it's been 6 months now. So I mean, if I would expect him to play a little bit, but coming off an ACL, you don't really know. You have Keith Adams, like you said, he's more of like the power back. Gideon Davidson, he should be the starter. Then you have Marquise Henderson. He's the other 4-star running back that we signed. So it is going to be kind of a running back by committee next year, I would assume. And I do also want to say, because, again, I'm a Clemson fan, and whenever we make these videos, there's always fans that come in and say, you guys didn't mention this guy or this guy. I can name everybody on the team, and somebody is going to say that. So I understand Antonio Williams is not on the screen. He's a very big piece. Tyler Brown as well as TJ Moore. There's a lot of people that we could name, but I didn't want to make it so lopsided where there's 3 losses and 25 returners, even though I understand that only 3 starters are gone. So technically I could have put 19 people on this list, but that takes away from the fact that it's, quote unquote key. I mean, I do think Antonio Williams is a big part of the offense, so he should have been on here, but there's only so much room for so many people. And as far as the Barrett Carter loss, I do think that's going to be a very big loss because Sammy Brown is probably the most, I would say, similar to his play style. But Jeremiah Alexander is a pass rusher, so he's not going to fill in that role as a Barrett Carter. We have a few guys behind Barrett, but I would assume that Wade Woodaz, who I have listed, is going to be the better linebacker on the team. He's very experienced. He was banged up, had a leg injury in the back half of the season. So I'm excited for the defense and the offense. But to kind of answer my own question as well, I think it's the running back position because Cade he can't win the game by himself. He's not a Cam Ward. So I want to go ahead and put that out there now. He's not a Cam Ward. He's not going to be able to do Cam Ward things. He's a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think he can will you to, a national championship without a consistent run game. So hopefully we're able to find that. And I'm not saying a bell cow, but at least consistency in the run game between the 3 or 4 running backs we named. So I think that'll be definitely something to look forward to. But I'll let you kind of break down your prediction first.
Yeah. So, and again, I know Steven being a Clemson fan, he had 12-0. I had 12-0 as well. Obviously, a couple of games that could go either way, I would say. The LSU game starting off the season, but where I feel a little bit more comfortable, I think that first game of the season is really where it's about what you're bringing back. And Clemson's bringing back so much in terms of continuality that I think that's going to be a very good game. Could be one of the best games this season. But I expect Clemson to be able to pull that out. Especially, I think that game at home or a neutral site?
It's in Clemson.
Yeah. So, and if you guys have never been, I know first game of the season anyway. But a game like LSU, that stadium is going to be rocking. Death Valley is going to be rocking. And the rest of this season, I think really really falls out very formidable for them. Very nice. You don't play Miami. There are a couple games that you have to be concerned with. Teams like SMU, who I think is going to be good again. Louisville's always tough. As you've mentioned a couple times, you think Florida State will be back. And that South Carolina game, especially at South Carolina, that's going to be a tough game. I just think Clemson will be the favorite in all those games. I wouldn't be shocked if they dropped one of those games. I don't think that would be the end of the world. I think at the end of the day, they are at the ACC championship game. But yeah, there's a couple games that could have went either way. Those are games that I just favored Clemson in. And so again, no bias. I'm not a Clemson fan. I just think with what they have returning and the way the schedule kind of works out for them, they're the favorite in a bunch of these games.
Yeah, I mean, I have them going 12-0. So I have my floor lower than your floor though. I have the floor at 7-5, which obviously would be a crazy underachievement. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't be shocking to me if they lost to LSU, SMU, Florida State, Louisville, or South Carolina, because those are all losable games.
Right.
Luckily, we have SMU and Florida State at home. But I think the two games that scare me the most are LSU, South Carolina.
Right.
Obviously, at South Carolina this year, they beat us last year. And then LSU is arguable top 5 team heading into college football. They have one of the better quarterbacks in college football as well. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, you start off with your toughest game, then you end off with your second toughest game. Even if you could split the game 1-1, I mean, win the rest and go 11-1, I like that. Even if you lose both, you're still 10-2 and in the ACC title game. So I do have them going 12-0 just because I think they'll be the favorite in every game. I know we're favored against LSU by 2.5 or 3, which is not a lot at home. But I think we cover that. I think this team is going to be very good at home. This is the first year in a long time where I think there's national championship expectation.
Right.
This is the first season, I would say, since the DJU first year of him starting, where it's like this team can win the national championship. Obviously, that first DJU team didn't pan out, but the expectation because of the Trevor and the Deshaun Watson was this team needs to compete for national championship.
DJ played the year before, and we saw him. Remember that Notre Dame game where he looked really good. So yeah, there was a lot of expectation that just didn't pan out. I think, and I'm going to say this early. I think Cade is in the Heisman conversation. I think this is his year. I know, and again, you're on record as saying you didn't believe in him last year. But again, I think there's something that he showed us at the end of the year. He showed us some grit. He showed us some ability. There's conversations of him in Heisman, him in the first pick conversation. I think he shows all that, and I think the reason being is he is bringing back his 3 primary ball catchers on the outside. Again, as you mentioned, new tight end, but all 3 of his primary wide receivers are coming back. He's going to have some his offensive coordinator staying. So he's going to have some comfort in the offense. And this is what a lot of these Heisman finalists are not going to have, are not going to be able to say. So I think this really bodes well. If he doesn't really pop off this year, then I think we can really say this guy is not it. Because you have everything in your corner for this to be a very good year for you.
Definitely. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think about Clemson. And as always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.
Peace.